Over the years, TikTok has turned plenty of creators into lol cows, each one pulling in their own wave of hate and ridicule. But few cases feel quite like Fuzzz99. Because this wasn't just the usual cycle of internet mockery. At a certain point, even parts of the very community he spoke for started to push back.
Why did you turn your comments off?
Fuck it, I'm done. I'm fucking done. No, fuck this shit.
But that was just the surface, because the backlash didn't stay online. It spilled into real life. He lost his job. He says the threats got serious enough that law enforcement had to be involved, serious enough that he was advised to step away from social media for a while, and at that point, it stopped looking like ordinary internet hate and started to feel like something else entirely.
I was recently hate crimed for being queer, and as a result of me being hate crimed for being queer, it ultimately led to me being fired from my job as a high school substitute teacher. Unfortunately, this morning I had a really bad incident with a hater and had to get the police involved. But I currently am being advised by the police to take a step back from TikTok.
But the backlash around Fuzzz99 was always more than just people calling him annoying. At the center of it were serious accusations. Claims that he was a predator, that he was grooming kids, that his content was intentionally directed at younger audiences to push an agenda. Fuzzz, for his part, denied that outright. He said that his content wasn't made for kids and that he couldn't control who watched, but critics pointed to other moments where he framed his content as helping younger viewers, giving them a space he never had growing up.
I have never once said that my content is for kids or that my intent has been to make content for kids. I make my content to be family friendly and wholesome because that's who I am and I want to be inclusive to everyone out there.
One of the biggest misconceptions that y'all haters have is that you actually believe that we are trying to make kids trans or gay. When in reality, that we are just trying to protect the kids that are trans and or gay.
Still, not everyone was convinced. To some people watching from the outside, the backlash started to feel exaggerated, forced even, because despite all the accusations being thrown around, there was still no concrete evidence to support them. No confirmed wrongdoing, no victims stepping forward to back up the claims, and that's when the narrative started to shift. People began pushing back.
Okay, so huge fuck you to whoever decided to look at this person, get super annoyed at them, and then be like, oh, they're a groomer.
But the damage had already been done. Fuzzz had lost his job and was constantly facing death threats. And what's even crazier is that the hate that he was getting was somehow connected to Donald Trump.
The far left is indoctrinating our children with twisted race and gender lunacy in our schools. There is clearly an effort in these schools to push gender confusion and impressionable young children.
So the question becomes unavoidable. Did Fuzzz deserve what happened to him? Did he deserve to lose his job, to be flooded with hate, to have his entire life pulled apart online? Or was he just caught in something bigger than himself? Because when you look at it closely, it doesn't fall neatly into one answer. Well, before he became the internet's favorite punching bag, he was just Mole Fanicos, a 30-year-old creator whose real name is still a mystery to people who aren't his OG followers. For years, he went by Mole. Then in 2025, he switched it to Mac.
Like, literally look at baby Mall fresh out of the closet celebrating their first ever Pride. Look how cute they are. Like, I've been going by Mall for the last few years of my life. It was a nickname for my dead name and came from a place of love from those closest in my life. And when I started going by Mall, I knew that it was just going to be a placeholder until I could figure out a name that really felt like me. Hold on, there's an AI overview of me now. Also, bro, they got my name wrong. Someone's got to fix that. Tell Google, someone fix that. But the name's Mac. N-A-C. So get it right, Google.
And even now, he has deliberately refused to tell the internet what his real name growing up was.
My parents didn't know what to name me when I was born. They had no clue what to name me. And then my grandfather walked into the room and was like, oh, how about this name?
Yeah, okay. We like that. That sounds good. That sounds good to us.
And that right there tells you everything. Fuzzz doesn't let people in. He only shows what he wants you to see, nothing more. And that's what makes this whole situation different. Because unlike most internet lolcows whose entire lives get dragged into the spotlight and dark secrets are exposed piece by piece, Fuzzz stays hidden, which makes the hate around him feel off and strange even, and honestly a little harder to explain. Max started his social media journey in 2020 just before the pandemic sent the entire planet into a collective existential spiral. And from his very first upload, he stayed in one lane: LGBTQ+ education. He wanted to teach people. He wanted to share his journey. He wanted to be that loud, proud, unashamed voice he never really saw growing up. He identifies as transmasculine and non-binary, uses he, they pronouns, and has described himself at different times as omnisexual, queer, and a demi-boy. And every piece of content he made pointed back to that, explaining, defining, breaking it down for anyone willing to listen.
What are some other things you can call your partner besides girlfriend, boyfriend, or partner? What are some gender-neutral compliments that you can give to a non-binary person? How can somebody be asexual and a lesbian?
He would dive into Sapphic history, going as far back as 600 BCE. He would cover niche topics like intersex awareness. And to be fair, if you strip away the theatrics, the foot stomping, and the voice that feels almost engineered to get under your skin, the information itself was solid, accurate, and genuinely useful, especially for people in the LGBTQ community who were actually trying to learn.
What the heck is Sapphic? Well, long ago, in 600 BCE, on the island of Lesbos, lived a Greek queer poet named Sappho. Sappho wrote many works exploring love, desire, and what it means and feels to be with a woman.
He found his first real viral moment in July 2020 when one video pulled in around 350,000 views. For a creator who had only been grinding for 6 months, that number felt unreal. And from that point on, the formula was set. The double foot stomp that shook the room, the arms shooting up like he was on stage at a rock concert, the camera practically being inhaled, and of course, the catchphrase, "I'm glad you asked." It was drawn out, loud, and impossible to ignore. Fuzzz isn't evil, just incredibly annoying. Why so loud? Is he training to yell this out of a moving car? To some people, it was endearing. To others, it was instant irritation, and that split reaction would end up defining everything that came next. You see, his theatrical content wasn't the problem. I mean, comedy thrives on exaggeration and fully committing to the bit, and Fuzzz leaned into that hard. In fact, he said before that he wanted to be a comedian growing up.
Hell, this is what I looked like in 5th grade. This is the stuff that I was into.
But this is where the disconnect starts because the topics he was covering weren't light. Gender identity and sexuality are deeply personal and sensitive. And when you package something like that in a delivery that feels loud, exaggerated, almost cartoonish, it doesn't land the way you think it will. The information was real, but the presentation made it feel like a children's TV segment. And when those two things collide, people don't laugh, they get uncomfortable. Fuzzz is the equivalent of one of those cringe HR videos that uses lame humor to tell you how sexually harassing your female employees is bad. This is a serious subject. Treat it seriously. And this is where the story takes a turn, because the first real wave of backlash didn't come from outside. It didn't come from conservatives or random trolls. It came from the very community he was trying to represent. I do not like Fuzzz99. If Obnoxious had a face, it would be Fuzzz. Being gay myself, I have a big issue with people like this who try to be a spokesperson for an entire community and push a lot of stereotypes and misinformation. As a trans person, I don't want that thing being near me. They make it their whole personality and think it's quirky.
Hi. Why did you turn your clothes?
Jeez, I don't know what it is. Because I do not believe in making fun of other people. I'm always so worried about like internalized homophobia, but oh my god, I can't.
Why did you turn your clothes off?
Fuck it, I'm done. I'm fucking done. No, fuck this shit.
Well.
Wow.
Shut the fuck up.
And that's what opened the floodgates. Because once that line was crossed, once his own community turned on him, everything changed. Suddenly, it wasn't just one group pushing back, it was everyone. Gay people, straight people, even people who didn't care before.
People assigned female at birth also naturally produce testosterone.
I'm not a person who was assigned female at birth. I'm a woman because I was born as one.
And everyone landed on the same conclusion, that Fuzzz was embarrassing the very community he claimed to speak for.
If I was to describe this content creator to somebody who had never known Fuzzz99's content, I would say that they were most definitely annoying and secondly obnoxious. But because of their form of content, as well as the manner of which they decided to present their content, there were so many people online who literally could not stand this individual. In fact, I would not be surprised if somebody that you knew have sent you one of Fuzzz99 videos and gone, what the hell is this dude's problem?
Now, don't get me wrong, Fuzzz did have people in his corner, people who actually resonated with him and his energy, with how unapologetic he was online. To them, he wasn't embarrassing, he was empowering. He gave them confidence to be louder, to take up space, to exist without toning themselves down just to make other people feel comfortable.
Why are y'all putting so much effort into insulting this person? Listen, I know everyone loves to make fun of things because they're cringe, right? Right? I get it. But as someone who is constantly told that they are cringe and that they shouldn't be doing those things because they're embarrassing or whatever the fuck, just let people have fun. When I watched this video for the first time, I was like, okay, I need to check this person out because so many people are stitching their videos and just making fun of them for whatever reason. And then I was just like, this is just someone being happy. What the fuck? Can people not be happy anymore? What the fuck?
And Fuzzz saw that support because his fans didn't just watch quietly, they showed up in comment sections, under reaction videos, and anywhere his name was being dragged, pushing back against creators calling him cringe or embarrassing.
My mental health the last few days has been absolute garbage. It really hasn't been good, I'll be honest. And this wave of positivity that came my way this weekend really truly meant the world. And I really needed it. So thank you to everyone who sent me love this weekend. I really needed it and appreciate you guys more than you know. So yesterday, somebody took one of my old TikTok videos and posted it to a hate account on Instagram. And as you guessed it, I got a lot of hate. Like 600 plus comments of people hating on me. Because of all the hate I was getting on Instagram yesterday, it totally made me feel not safe. It made me realize how lucky I am to have this safe space on TikTok and to have all of you with me. Y'all always defend me and y'all always hype me up. I cried because of all the hate comments last night, and then I came on here and cried at y'all's comments because y'all are so sweet and I don't deserve you. So thank you for loving me and making this a safe space on TikTok.
Despite the love he was getting, the frustration from within the community was pretty clear. They felt like he was reinforcing the very stereotypes they had spent years trying to break. The over-the-top reactions, the constant theatrics, the feeling that everything had to be turned into a performance, and it all fed into a stereotype that already existed, that queer people are loud, overdramatic, and impossible to take seriously. And when one creator with hundreds of thousands of followers starts to look like the face of that, it doesn't just stay online. For a lot of queer viewers, it felt embarrassing, not funny or harmless, just uncomfortable to be associated with.
Like, blah. Because, like, nobody wants to be straight.
What? I don't know, man. I kind of like being straight. And I'm furry. So...
But there was one stereotype that went way beyond online embarrassment. Because this one didn't just stay on the internet, it pulled in law enforcement. It turned him into the subject of multiple YouTube documentaries. And eventually, it pushed him off the internet entirely. You see, there's a narrative that has followed the LGBTQ community for years. The idea that they're grooming children.
But at least some of these conservatives, it just seems like maybe they're trying to convince you that queer people are groomers, so nobody suspects them.
This sort of language was used as a slur for many gay and lesbian, homosexual people over the course of history. The idea was that if you were gay or lesbian, what you really were, you were attempting to groom kids. And that was used as a slur because the notion that gays and lesbians prey on children at a rate that is wildly different from that in the straight population.
This idea has been widely debunked, but narratives like that don't need to be true to be powerful. Because all it takes is one creator with a large following getting pulled into allegations, and suddenly that narrative comes roaring back. Not just aimed at one person, but at the entire community. Fuzz's grooming allegations started when he revealed that he worked as a high school substitute teacher.
Before I I hurt my back a couple months ago, I used to substitute in my old high school. And because we need money again, we're back at school, baby. I substitute teach at my old high school. And most of the teachers know who I am, and that was me.
And then his content started to shift. He began using phrases like, my gay kid's this and my gay kid's that, over and over again, and eventually it became hard to ignore.
I saw so many of my kids today, I'm so happy! I didn't get to see any of my little gay kids though, so like, I hope I get to see them the next time that I show again.
He would come home from school and talk about having his gay kids from the previous year. He shared stories from the classroom, talked about interactions with students, gave them nicknames, posted it all online, and that's where people started getting uncomfortable. Because most teachers don't do that. They keep a line between their personal life and their students. They don't bring the classroom onto social media, and they definitely don't bring up anything about sexuality when talking about kids.
Guess who had their first day back subbing at school today? I did. So right off the bat, for first period, I had a bunch of my gay kids that I had last year in the class. And the way their faces lit up when they saw me this morning, y'all, it made me feel so good and reminded me why I love to do what I do. And like all day, just seeing everyone throughout the day just made me so happy. Overall, I miss my kids and I'm so happy to be back. Y'all, it finally happened! My kids figured out I'm TikTok famous!
The language rubbed people the wrong way. It felt possessive. Like these weren't just students he taught occasionally, but something more personal. And even before any serious accusations surfaced, people were already side-eyeing it, calling it weird and questioning the boundaries, because from the outside, it started to look like his content wasn't just for a general audience anymore. It looked like he was making it for kids. I mean, just look at his delivery. The finger guns, the bouncing, the cartoon voices, the clapping, sing-song energy. To his critics, it didn't read as content made for adults.
The overall behavior, the speech, the mannerisms, the aesthetics of these videos are that of what my 4-year-old son would be watching in terms of Blue's Clues or Blippi. Which begs the question of why? Why? Why are you trying to reach an audience of that age and that maturity? And in doing so, talking about the things you are talking about.
Instead, this kind of style only made sense for one audience. A younger one. And it didn't stop there, because when critics started digging deeper, they found out this wasn't the only place he was around kids. He was also working as a camp counselor, and the content didn't change.
Hey, good morning, homie. You ready for another great day at camp? Homie, are you ready for your third day at camp? Hey!
The content was clearly pretty childish. It's also clear that Fuzzz had a lot of access to kids. And his content, while educational, still revolved around topics like identity, attraction, and sexuality. Individually, those things might not raise alarms, but to his critics, it started to feel like pieces of a larger picture. Dots that, in their eyes, were begging to be connected.
That's fucking weird. That's absolutely straight fucking weird. Like, he works at a camp with access to children, makes content geared towards garnering an audience of children. And I don't mean like a Mr. Rogers, like positive influence kind, like some borderline grooming type shit. I'm just saying, the dots are there. It can be connected pretty easily.
And at times, he didn't make it any easier for himself, because some of the content he put out was bound to get a reaction. In one video, for example, he asks his audience whether they would date a masculine bottom, a question that to many people felt clearly sexual. And once that clip started circulating, it gave his critics the ammunition they needed.
Put a finger down if you wouldn't mind dating a masculine switch/bottom.
The backlash intensified. Criticism turned into harassment, and the noise got louder by the day. According to Fuzzz, it got so intense that law enforcement had to get involved.
I really hate to come on here to make this video, and I really don't want to, because I know that a lot of you out there still really enjoy and like my videos, and they make your day and they make you smile, and that's all I've ever wanted in life. Unfortunately, this morning, I had a really bad incident with a hater and had to get the police involved. A lot of people in my life know my current situation right now, and I wish I could talk about it more, but I don't want to and can't really get into it. But I currently am being advised by the police to take a step back from TikTok. I have to take a break for a little while until a lot of this hate calms down. It might be a week,
It might be a month, it might be a year, it might be forever. I truly don't know how long of a break that I'm going to take or have to take.
To the point where he was advised to step away from the internet entirely. In his announcement video, Fuzzz tried to clear his name. He insisted his content was never meant for kids and that he couldn't control who ended up watching it. Instead, he shifted that responsibility elsewhere, arguing that if the content wasn't appropriate, it was up to the parents to monitor what their kids were seeing online.
Before I go though, I did want to talk about two major assumptions that the haters are making about me and just clarify things because I just want to clarify because I was going to make a video this week to talk about it, but obviously I have to leave now. So, real quick. One, I've never once said that my content is for kids or that my intent has been to make content for kids. Most people don't know this, but you have to be at least 13 years old to even make or have a TikTok account. And TikTok makes your account private until you're at least the age of 16. If a kid does find my TikToks, that is out of my control. From that point on, it's on the parents' duty to be in charge of monitoring what their kids are watching and doing. I make my content to be family friendly and wholesome because that's who I am and I want to be inclusive to everyone out there. And I want people to know that this is a safe place where they can ask any question they want and they won't get judged.
But for people who had been following closely, that response didn't sit right. It didn't feel like he was distancing himself from the backlash. It felt inconsistent. And that's where the accusations of hypocrisy started to come in. I mean, just listen to what he said in this video about kids being targeted by the trans community.
One of the biggest misconceptions that y'all haters have is that you actually believe that we are trying to make kids trans or gay. When in reality, that we are just trying to protect the kids that are trans and or gay. Nobody wants to make anybody somebody they're not. Like, literally, no one does not. We want these kids to be safe and to live their lives as who they are. We want them to be successful and to make it to adulthood. And we want them to have better lives than we ever had. We want better for them. They deserve better. And they deserve love. So stop believing we're trying to brainwash all the children of the world. We are just looking out for our people. We love and support one another in the community. It's kind of what we do here. Maybe y'all should try loving one another sometime. It's pretty nice.
So which one was it? On one hand, he said his content wasn't meant for kids, that he had no control over who watched, but on the other, he framed it as something that was for them, a space to learn, to feel safe, to live the kind of life he didn't have growing up. And those two things don't sit easily together. The contradiction was clear, and despite all of that, the backlash, the scrutiny, and the accusations, there was one thing people couldn't point to: actual evidence. No proof that he had done anything illegal, no proof that he had harmed anyone. Unlike other lolcows whose secret lives find their ways to the public, there wasn't any evidence linking him to any weird behavior, especially with minors. Now, that didn't mean people suddenly liked him. A lot of them still found him cringe, but even then, most agreed on one thing: being cringe isn't a crime, and it's definitely not enough to label someone a groomer or a predator.
Okay, so huge fuck you to whoever decided to look at this person, get super annoyed at them, and then be like, oh, they're a groomer.
So if those allegations didn't stick, why was the hate still there? Because at that point, anyone who found him cringe could have just blocked him, scrolled past, and moved on, but they didn't. The backlash kept building, and when you start peeling back the layers, a different picture begins to form. One that makes the whole situation a lot less random than it seemed at first. It all stemmed from classrooms all over the country.
This has been my first year in preschool with a class of my own, teaching alongside another queer neurodivergent educator, and we have been rocking our Choose class. We've been talking about gender and skin color and consent and empathy and our bodies and autonomy.
I pledge allegiance to the queers.
Them or they?
You would say they if you were talking about me and you were like, they are really awesome.
My student pulled me aside to ask me if I was trans. I said yes, and almost immediately they said, so when I grow up, I can actually be a boy? And honestly, I'm just proud they could say it out loud, because that really takes a lot.
Around the same time Fuzzz was blowing up online, something else was happening in the background. Teachers who were part of the LGBTQ community were popping up all over social media, sharing stories from their classrooms. On the surface, it all seemed harmless. Just educators talking about their day, their students, and the conversations they were having. But those conversations often centered around gender, identity, and sexuality. And Fuzzz was right there in the middle of it doing the exact same thing.
So Something kind of sweet happened at camp today. I was sitting with one of my campers in the art room today drawing pictures. And there was a moment when it was just me and them at the table, and they were like, Mo, are you a boy or a girl? Oh, I'm neither. I'm just me. Huh. Just me? I kinda like that. I think I'm just me too. Sometimes I just like to wear boys' clothes and not girls' clothes. That's cool. I love that. Really? Oh, of course. I love that.
Conservatives didn't see this as harmless content. To them, it looked like something much more serious. They argued that creators like Fuzzz, along with other teachers posting similar videos, were pushing ideology into the classroom under the guise of education. In their view, these conversations about gender and sexuality weren't neutral, they were framed as influence, as indoctrination. And once that interpretation took hold, it spread quickly, turning what some saw as openness and representation into something others viewed as a threat.
Unfortunately, government schools have used this trust and been indoctrinating children with far-left lies and poisoning their minds with woke gender ideology.
We're getting activists instead of teachers, indoctrinating children into their leftist ideology, and of course talking about themselves during class time, specifically their gender identity.
Well, I think it's very clear that there are certain teachers that have an agenda, and that their agenda is to indoctrinate children into this LBGT mindset.
What made it even bigger was that the conversation didn't stay online, because at a certain point, figures like Donald Trump started echoing the same talking points, framing it as indoctrination, as something happening inside schools that needed to be stopped. He even went as far as calling it child abuse.
The far left is indoctrinating our children with twisted race and gender lunacy in our schools. There is clearly an effort in these schools to push gender confusion and impressionable young children without parents' knowledge or consent. That's what's happening. In a fair world, the schools that are forcing sexual propaganda on kindergartners would be investigated. Their administrators would be terminated. Their teachers would be removed from the classroom, and the school would be placed under receivership until it was once again a safe place for our children to learn. Pushing woke gender ideology. Woke gender ideology, think of it, on young people is nothing less than child abuse. No teacher should ever be allowed to teach transgender to our children without the parents' consent, and I don't think too many people are going to be giving that consent, Mark. Not too many.
It was starting to make sense. There was a growing wave of backlash aimed at a specific group of teachers across the country, and Fuzzz99 ended up right in the center of it. He had the biggest platform, the most visibility, and unlike others who stepped back, he kept going. Sure, he would switch off comments from time to time, disappear for a bit, take a short break, but he always came back. And as this was happening, his content started to shift. He wasn't just explaining identities anymore, he was stepping into national conversations, talking about controversial issues, the kind that already had people divided and that only made the spotlight on him even more intense.
It doesn't matter that the shooter was trans. There has been more school shootings than the amount of school days in a school year. And how many of those shooters have been trans? Because I can't think of any others. This situation boils down to two facts and two facts only. No matter how someone identifies, whether they're a cis man or a trans man, nobody has the right to take away someone else's. And it's on the US government to start listening to the people who are fighting against these massacres of innocent kids and wanting a better life for them and safety for them, and to enact better gun control laws. The right to bear arms amendment was put into place in case we the people ever had to overthrow our own government, not so people could take the lives away from innocent kids.
Predictably, his videos started getting mixed reactions, but things escalated fast after he was fired from his substitute teaching job. And depending on who you ask, the reason falls into two completely different narratives. One side sees it as a clear case of homophobic targeting, the other sees it as consequences catching up.
I was recently hate crimed for being queer, and as a result of me being hate crimed for being queer, it ultimately led to me being fired from my job as a high school substitute teacher.
According to Fuzzz, he was targeted for being queer, and that targeting is what ultimately led him to losing his job. He says that in September of the previous year, he was called into an HR meeting after people reported him, and after students started writing his username on classroom whiteboards. In that meeting, he laid everything out: his online presence, the kind of content he made, harassment he says he was dealing with, even the fact that police had been involved. And according to him, the response he got was supportive, that his social media was his own, that the school understood what was happening, and that the people coming after him wouldn't be able to take his job away.
In September of last year, I was called into HR's office for 1, being reported by the haters, and 2, apparently the freshmen were writing my username on whiteboards, and the school wanted to make sure I wasn't self-promoting my brand, which I wasn't. It was then during this meeting though, I explained that I was internet famous and that I make LGBTQ educational content on the internet, and that I was targeted towards the end of summer, and that our very own town's manager was aware I was being harassed, as well as the local police department being informed and then later involved. At the end of the meeting, my manager said, word for word, and I never forgot this: I don't care if you swear like a sailor or post whatever you want to post. It is your social media and you can do whatever you want to do with it.
Then everything went downhill. On October 30th, 2023, he says he got an email from HR asking to meet about his social media posts. A few days later, on the morning of November 2nd, before that meeting even happened, all of his booked substitute jobs, stretching months ahead, were suddenly gone. Canceled. When he finally sat down with HR, he says the tone had changed. His manager slid 2 screenshots across the table. Old videos. Thirst trap. Content from nearly 4 years earlier, back when he had long hair and was still in what he describes as his femme era. And according to him, those clips didn't just surface randomly. He believes someone went digging, scrolling through thousands of old posts, pulling out specific videos and sending them directly to the school. Not to raise concerns, but to get him fired.
On October 30th, 2023, I received an email from my HR manager asking to sit down to talk about my social media posts. The morning of November 2nd, before my meeting with HR, I was notified by email by our substitute booking website that all of my jobs that I had booked out till March were taken away from me and I was released from working them. When I walked into the meeting, my HR manager asked me if I knew why I was here. I said I had no idea, besides wanting to talk about my social media posts. They then pulled out a yellow folder and slid 2 screenshots of 2 old thirst traps across the table to me. And I was just like, oh my god, wow, oh my god, I haven't seen these videos in forever. Oh my god. This is from within the first month of me making TikToks every day, when the gays were using TikTok as a dating app. Oh my god. I still had long hair. We were planning on cutting ties with you today, but this could change some things. A person sent an email to the school this morning with these videos attached, complaining and wanting you fired. Knowing the haters too, they probably also threatened the school in some way too. Wow, I can't believe this. Yeah, that person went through thousands upon thousands of my videos to find these.
Someone wanted Fuzzz gone, and eventually they got their way. But even then, the public reaction wasn't as one-sided as you might expect, because for a lot of people watching this unfold, the conclusion was pretty simple. He hadn't done anything illegal. There was no proof he was a predator, no evidence he was grooming kids. If anything, to them, he was just annoying, loud, over the top, and easy to cringe at, but being cringe isn't a crime. And to his credit, Fuzzz didn't disappear. He kept posting. Same loud, over-the-top style, same energy that got him noticed in the first place. He stayed outspoken on divisive issues, and for the people who connected with him, he continued to offer something they felt they needed, a space where they didn't have to tone themselves down. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't criticism, because there was plenty. He could be repetitive, overwhelming, and sometimes careless in ways that even people in his own community pushed back on, but somewhere between this is cringe and this is a predator, things got distorted. The conversation stopped being fair, and that's where the real damage happened. Because at his core, he wasn't some mastermind hiding in plain sight. He was a creator who didn't fully understand how his content would be received, someone who got caught in the middle of a culture that doesn't always know the difference between discomfort and wrongdoing.